All right, people, we're doing this. Don't get too excited. I'm still not teaching people stuff, but once in a while, we need to go over some fundamentals. For all the people out there who are into occult practices, I'm sure you recognize this. This is the Tree of Life. This is the 3 pillars. This is part of Hermeticism. This is part of Kabbalah. This is one of the main processes for finding self-understanding and bettering the self. And if you haven't seen this before, then just trust me on that. Now, you guys recognize this one too, right? This is the 7 chakras. This is the primary Eastern path of getting to understand the self, becoming a better, fuller person. Hey, wait, this sounds awful familiar, doesn't it? But Joe Marge, you used to do all this occult stuff. Which one is true? Which one should I do? It doesn't matter. They're both the same thing. Uh-oh, here come the comments. No, they're not. Here's some specifics. I don't care about your specifics. Think of these things like a metaphor. Don't get caught up on whether it's an energy wheel in the center of someone's being or whether it's a Sephiroth that you're going up and down on this. You're getting caught up in the minutia. What is it trying to achieve? What is the process you go through? What are the primary things that you focus on in order to get there? And then you'll see they're the same thing. So let's start out with the Tree of Life. I am not going to pronounce these different things. They're over there if you want to know what they are. But I'm going to explain what they mean. The process was supposed to go from 10 on up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You'll notice that also zigzags across this structure. There's a reason for that. So the central pillar is supposed to be things that are just fundamentally their own thing. And the 2 side pillars are when there's a polarity that you need to understand. There's a sort of left side and right side to it. They call them the pillars of mercy and severity. And what I like to translate that into for better understanding is the pillar of intuition/emotion and the pillar of logic/mathematics. So you have the mathematical logical side and you have the emotional intuitive side. Back in the day, they used to call that the masculine and feminine. People get caught up not really understanding that if you use those terms nowadays. Now, before you say like, oh yeah, this is the left-hand path and the right-hand path, here's the thing. You need to do all these steps. There's no just follow the middle and ignore the 2 sides. That'll fuck you up. There's no just go on the left and ignore the right. That'll fuck you up. You're supposed to go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 through them all. You're supposed to go hopping left and right, understanding the entirety of the human spectrum. That's kind of the point. I got my own things to say about the left-hand path and right-hand path. We're not getting into that right now. So number 10 is the kingdom. This is the base level. This is what you consider the low things on your hierarchy of needs, like survival, building a shelter, stuff like that. Number 9 is foundation. This is more like coming to understand self-awareness, coming to recognize things that you need, coming to understand your feelings and desires, coming to take all that stuff and form something for yourself, a foundation upon which to build. Number 8 and number 7 are directly across from each other, and this is on purpose because you need to try to understand both of these concepts in order to fully grasp what's going on. Number 8 is glory, and number 7 is victory and power. From my personal perspective, these are a representation of order. These are a representation of you going out and trying to achieve your own ambitions, your own goals, and finding ways that work and ways that don't, and sorting that shit out. Number 6 is beauty. And this isn't just talking about things that are pretty. This is talking about being able to go out into nature and just get it. Just see that splendor. Number 5 and 4, again, opposites that you need to understand how they work together and aren't really opposite. Number 5 being severity, justice, and strength. And number 4 being mercy and loving kindness. I don't think I really need to explain why those are opposites or why you need both of these things. I think you guys get this picture by now. Number 3 is understanding and number 2 is wisdom. And once again, those are on the 2 sides. One representing an intuitive sort of thinking, one representing a logical sort of thinking and taking those things together. And then last you have the crown. This is where everything comes together. There's fulfillment. There's true recognition of the self and consciousness. Cool. Good. Now let's look at the chakras and see how they're similar. The lowest one is called the I am. This is a representation of energy, stability, comfort, and safety. Sounds familiar. The next one up is I feel. This is a representation of sensuality, sexuality, pleasure, sociability. Think of it like feeling, not as in my feelings and emotions, but as in the ability to have a feeling, like I feel hungry, I feel horny, stuff like that, and to really understand those feelings and how to both control them and have fun with them. The third one is I do. This is representative of strength, personality, power, determination. Once again, this is that order, that sense of structure, that moving yourself toward your goals. And I feel like this is actually where a lot of people get stuck on either chart. They get stuck on the search for power's sake, and they don't recognize that power needs to have a reason, that your ambition should have a goal, that your direction should be purposeful. Otherwise, you just get power hungry and you lose sight of the rest of this process. Number 4 is I love, acceptance, love, compassion, sincerity. And if you recall, on the Tree of Life, this same point was called beauty. Number 5 is the I talk. This is the throat. This is communication, expression, creativity, inspiration. And from my personal point of view, it's also honesty. Because if you communicate with honesty, then you can create beautiful things with one another. But if you lie, it poisons the communication and causes things that have holes in them. On the Tree of Life, this was represented more with severity, justice, and strength, and mercy and loving kindness. In other words, you have to look at the two sides of this concept of truth. From a logical, mathematical point of view, truth is things that are true and therefore not false. They are non-lies. From an intuitive feeling side of things, you can observe something that is a known fiction, like a fiction story, and find truths within it, find metaphors for truth within it. These are two different kinds of truth that you have to understand both of, that are both okay to speak, but where you run into trouble is when you openly lie, when you don't admit that something is a fiction for the sake of metaphor, or when you try to find meaning within the cold hard facts. Like, these things are two different things that do need to come together, but they work in their own ways. Number 6 is the I see. Some people call this the third eye. This is intuition, lucidity, meditation, trust. And the Tree of Life, this was called wisdom and understanding. And the 7th chakra is I understand, knowledge, consciousness, fulfillment, spirituality. This was the crown from the Tree of Life. Now let's get even more crazy with this. Let me see if I can do some graphical stuff on the screen here. If I place the Tree of Life over top of the chakras in just the right way, then you will see this lineup where it almost looks like, oh look, it's the exact same thing. If we take every time that there was something on the two pillars on the right and left side and treat them as one thing, you've only got 7 things on both of these things, and they mean the same things. Not only are these teaching you the same things, they're teaching you the same things in the same order. Not only that, but many people like to put the Tree of Life over top of a body, just like how you have the chakras over top of a body. So it all represents going up or down the spine of the individual. The spine, of course, being where the entire nervous system for your body exists. There are also people who relate the planets to these different locations. And in astrology, you have different meanings ascribed to each of the planets, and those meanings match up with these meanings. So even if you're someone who's like, man, astrology is crazy, it doesn't really have the meanings and blah, 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 you can still see how if you took each of those different representations of the celestial bodies and just focused on the concept that they have ascribed to each one, you'd still find a path to understanding self. Don't get hung up on whether there's energy centers. Don't get hung up on how many hours you need to meditate or whether there's a certain ritual to do. Just pay attention to these concepts and spend time thinking about them. And not just thinking on one side logically or the other side intuitively, but together. And that's it. I want to thank my circle of magi for helping me to fund this operation. You guys are cool. Also, most of these guys probably already knew this, and in fact, most of my viewers probably already knew everything from this. You guys might have known all this before I even knew it. But it still felt like a worthwhile lesson, not only to talk about, but also just to be a reminder. Did I just call it a lesson? I meant I'm just showing you something. I'm not teaching you anything, I'm just showing you something. I'm saying, hey, look at this crazy thing. All right, guys, I'm going to go meditate on this weird double circle thing I've got up here. If anybody knows what that is, you're cool. Other than that, take care. And until next time, safe travels.